Hello to you, my neighbors on Rich Kid Island. Welcome to our space and to episode 23 in season 2 of the Hot Money Talks podcast. My name is Christine Ishampepe, the money mechanic, and I help you fix your finances. My mission is to equip Africa's younger population with adequate financial literacy, advice, and strategy so they can journey to financial freedom and live life purposefully on their own terms and to the fullest, because money is no more a barrier. I want you to live your best life. The Hot Money Talks podcast is a series of honest, open, and transparent money conversations that will guide you on your journey to financial freedom. Here on the podcast, we believe that financial freedom is possible 100% when you have the right set of knowledge, the right amount of time, and the right circle of people. It's been a couple of weeks, since we had a new episode on the podcast, and I would like to sincerely apologize for this. Life has been happening. And so I took a little break, to just take care of myself. I'm sincerely sorry if you felt starved of content. Please forgive me, but I'm back. So let's get down to business. Now, a whole lot of Nigerians are dealing with black tax. And many of us are really concerned that our personal financial goals are suffering as a result of the overwhelming burden of black tax. So today we'll be discussing about how to handle black tax without compromising your money goals. Now, let's start by defining what black tax is. Okay? Now, black tax, like I would like to say it, is your family's entitlement to your money. Okay? So this term is used to describe the financial support that individuals provide to, their extended family or their community, most times out of obligation rather than out of, free will or out of choice. Now, this concept is very prevalent in many African societies, including Nigeria, where there is a very strong cultural and family ties. And as a result of this, financially stable members of the family are required to now assist those who are less fortunate. Now, the intent behind black tax, we could say, is a noble intent, upholding the values of community, solidarity. But you see, it can also pose challenges to those who are trying to build personal wealth and also achieve financial independence. In Nigeria, black tax comes in different, forms. Funding a sibling's education, covering a relative's medical expenses, contributing to someone's rents, right? And different things. For many millennials and Gen Zs, especially those who are earning their first salaries, this financial expectation can feel really like a burden and can impact their ability to save, to invest, and to plan for the future. Have I just told a story about your life? Now, let's talk about how black tax affects us. Now, the first way black tax affects us is it causes financial strain, right? Because constantly supporting extended family can stretch your income thin and leave you with little room for personal savings or investment. Secondly, black tax affects us, by causing delayed goals, because it becomes harder to achieve your personal milestones, like buying a home, starting a business, or even building an emergency fund. So I've spoken to quite a number of people, and they're like, I am taking so much of my family's, burdens that I don't even have an emergency fund. And so if an emergency will hit me now, I don't even know how I'm going to take care of it. Another way that black tax affects us is mental and emotional stress. Of course, this pressure to meet family expectations, coupled with the guilt of, saying no, right, can lead to burnout and also lead to strained relationships. You see this issue of saying no, right? The truth is that, and we're going to come to the ways to deal with black tax. I know that it's difficult for you to say no. You don't want to be seen as the inconsiderate daughter or son, right? And because of that, it puts you under a whole lot of mental and emotional stress. Okay, another way that black tax affects us is causing a generational cycle of dependency. So it's good to help family, right? It's very commendable. But over reliance on one individual could often perpetuate a cycle of financial dependency. But despite these challenges, it's still possible to handle black tax in a way that, allows you to support your family and still, focus on your money goals as well. So let's talk about some strategies for managing black tax. The first strategy is to set clear financial goals, as in very clear financial goals. I've spoken with different people, right, who have come to complain to me about black tax and how they're unable to, they don't know what to do because they're overwhelmed. And when you begin to talk in detail, you eventually find out that a whole lot of these people don't even have very clear personal financial goals. Like, if you ask them, okay, fine, you're complaining about how you're so overwhelmed by black tax that you can't even achieve your goals. Fine, understood. What actually are your goals? What actually do you want to set out to achieve in the next 6 months, the next 1 year? Do you have a clearly written goal that you're working towards? Many of us do not have that. We just know that I want to save, I want to probably buy land, I want to invest, but there's no clear goal. Now, according to Teresa Foy, she says vague goals produce vague results. That's just it, right? So when your goals are vague, don't expect clear results. So it's important that the first thing you must do to manage black tax is to start by defining your short and long-term financial goals. Whether you want to save for a land, or you want to invest in the stock market, or you want to build an emergency fund, you want to buy a car, you want to get married, because that is a very valid goal. You need to have clarity about what your priorities are, because this now helps you to make intentional decisions about how much you are actually, going to be able to give to family without jeopardizing your future. You see, when you have your goals clearly before you, right, it helps you to be more intentional really about meeting it, right? So when you know that you have a goal ahead of you, I'm not saying don't help your family, but you'll be more strategic, more intentional about how you spend your money, because you now know that, okay, all of my money is not just going to family, right? There are also personal financial goals that mean a lot to me that I need to work towards, and now I'm going to be more intentional. This is my strategy, to actually hit these goals and still support my family. Now, my second strategy is to create a budget and stick to it. Now, we all know that a budget is a plan for how you spend your money, right? And all of us should use a budget, by the way, because it keeps you in control of your finances. So instead of wondering where your money, has gone to after you spent it, rather you're able to give your money, a job, right? Direct it to where you want it to go to from the very beginning. So it's great, a very, very great strategy to allocate a specific portion of your income for black tax in your monthly budget. Now, this allows you to fulfill your obligations without overspending. So, for example, you could say, okay, when I receive my salary every month, I will allocate 10 to 15% or 20% of my income to family support. Now, this depends on your financial situation, to be very honest, okay? Your 10%, could be like, I don't know, 1% for somebody else. Do you get my point? And vice versa. So it really depends on your income, right? But then you need to decide and say, okay, I earn, for example, 200,000 naira monthly, right? Let's say this is how much you earn. You could say, okay, fine, I will allocate 10%, that's 20,000, or 20%, depending, because you know that that's not the only thing you're using your 200,000 naira for. There's transportation, you have to buy food in your house, you have to subscribe for your monthly data plan, and a couple of other things, right? But you could say, okay, fine, I am determined that every month I will remove 10% of my income and send home, right, for family, or keep it so that when family needs come up, I will use it to handle those family needs. Now, this puts you under less pressure, right? And also helps you in your communication with your family, so that they know that, oh, it's not like, your money is, as Nigerians would say, your money long, so that they don't feel like your money is unending, so that they understand that, oh, there's actually a limit, to what I can give comfortably at this time. Because if you don't do this, you're going to end up getting into debts because you're trying to meet up with these obligations, and that's a very, very toxic place to be in. A third strategy is to communicate openly with your family. Now, this is so key. I know that many of us, especially in Nigeria, haven't grown up in homes where money was a topic of discussion. And I always encourage millennials and Gen Zs, you're going to be the next set of parents. Inculcate the habit of talking about money with your spouse, with your children. Because imagine that we had grown up talking about money. For me, I was blessed because I grew up like in a home where we talked about money. Me and my mom talk about money all the time, right? And so it has helped a lot with communication. But many of us, the majority of us, did not have that open communication. But having honest conversations with your family about your financial limitations, is very important. Now, it could be difficult, right? But it's very necessary. You need to be able to explain your goals and why it's important, to you that you achieve those goals, and then also set boundaries, right? As part of this conversation, you could also encourage these family members to explore other income generating opportunities rather than solely relying on you. Have you ever thought to yourself that maybe that cousin keeps calling you, right, and asking you for money and choosing not to get a job or take their life seriously because they know you'd always give them money? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about the fact that maybe these people can actually take the decision to be responsible for themselves? Now, I know circumstances differ. So, for example, if you have parents who maybe are retired, cannot work right now, or ill health and all of that, there are different circumstances. But if there are certain people who have come to the point where they solely rely on you and they don't do anything with their lives, that's a serious red flag, because that means they will always rely on you and they will never take responsibility for their lives, right? So communication is very, very important. I'm not saying, you need to bring out your, budget for that particular goal, or tell them exactly how much your saving goal is or something, but you should be able to at least articulate that, look, I'm not getting any younger, right? I'm actually planning to get married. I'm engaged to a woman, right? And I'm speaking from a guy's perspective, right? And I want to be able to save up so that we can, enter into our marriage smoothly, have, emergency savings, etc. Let them know, right? Because you see many people thinking that on their wedding day, they're going to get monetary gifts and that's what's going to cushion them when they enter their home. That's a risky backup plan for a new home. So these are things you should actually be thinking about even before the wedding. Now, this is just an example, but you get my point. Communicate openly with your family. They might not like it, but maybe you would be that person who actually breaks the ice and, helps your family start actually talking about money. Money conversations are incredibly important in family settings. A fourth strategy is to prioritize requests. Now, not all financial requests are equally urgent. So it's important to learn to differentiate between emergencies and non-essentials, right? So emergencies could be like medical bills. Non-essentials could be like your cousin or your little sister or little sister most likely calls you and is like, Sisi, I want to buy ashwebi for my friend's wedding. Like, okay. Now, again, there's nothing wrong in buying ashwebi, but at that point in time, you need to prioritize. In the face of everything that is going on with us as a family, will my buying this ashwebi for my sister or brother or whoever or cousin, how is this exactly contributing to our family goals? Or rather, let's look at it this way: are there more pressing needs than buying this ashwebi right now? Can I afford to spare that amount of money for ashwebi? These are very pertinent questions. So it's important that you prioritize support for critical needs that align with your values and with your capacity, right? So you don't buy what you cannot chew. Fifth strategy on how to manage black tax is to empower rather than enable. Now, instead of offering continuous financial handouts, consider empowering your family members to become financially independent. This could involve funding them to learn a vocation, teaching them about saving and budgeting, or helping them start a small business. Now, again, I'm sure you're thinking, sometimes this doesn't go well. And I totally agree, right? I have seen people, I have even experienced, even with family, you want to empower them really. You start a business for them, they run it down, and so many other things. But this is still an option. For some people, maybe truly they don't know that they need to step up and take responsibility for themselves. Do your part. If they run down the business you started for them, that's on them. But do your part so that, like I said, you don't stay solely responsible for certain people in your family. Let them take responsibility for themselves as well. 6 strategies to build an emergency fund. Now, why is this important? Because an emergency fund ensures that you have money set aside for unexpected situations, including black tax, right? So your aim should be to save at least 3 to 6 months worth of your living expenses to cushion you against financial stress. Now, you may include your family in your budget, right? And say, for example, you give your family 50,000 naira or 20,000 naira every month, right? And something comes up in the middle of the month that was not anticipated, and you still need to step in. Instead of going to borrow, your emergency fund could be, your saving grace at that point in time. So even as we try to, focus on other goals, we try to help family, let building an emergency fund be a key priority for us, because it will not just be helpful to us, but also be helpful to, black tax requests. 7th strategy is to seek professional advice. Now, if you feel like black tax is really, really, really significantly affecting your finances, you may actually consider speaking to a financial advisor or a coach. Why? Because they can provide tailored strategies that can help you balance your family obligations with your financial goals. And you already know the vibes. If you're looking for a financial coach, I'm here for you. Just send me an email at talktothemoneymechanic@gmail.com, and we can further converse on how to help you best achieve your financial goals. All right. Finally, the last tip is to learn to say no. Now, this is perhaps the most challenging but crucial aspect of handling black tax. You need to politely but firmly decline requests that exceed your budget or compromise your financial well-being. Now, remember, you're not being selfish. You're just ensuring your long-term ability to help. And this is so profound, right? Because the truth is, when you win, your family will win. If you are careless about your finances and you keep spending everything without saving anything, without investing anything, at some point in your life, you're going to get to a point where you are actually going to be genuinely unable to help. And not just help your family, but even help yourself. Remember, as young people, that we're going to be old. And at that point in time, are we going to be someone else's responsibility? Right? So, you don't need to be rude. You don't need to, burn the building down, because you want to say no. But you must learn to set boundaries. Learn how to politely but firmly decline requests that exceed your budget. If you really cannot afford something at that point in time, or you can already foresee that handling that issue will get you into debt, and you're trying to get out of debt, find a way to politely but firmly decline. No is not a dirty word. No is not a dirty word. Let's normalize saying no, right? So that we don't get into more financial stress because we can't say no. Now, I just wanted to point out here that, especially for us Nigerians, when we talk about black tax, I always talk about how to manage it, right? Because how to get rid of it is nearly impossible. Because there are a whole lot, like we talked about the cultural, aspect of it. We come from a culture that values family, right? It's very difficult for a Nigerian and African to just turn their backs on family, right? We're a communal set of people. And so black tax is still around, very much around, right? But we can manage it. And that's why we've shared these 8 strategies, which I hope can help you manage black tax and not compromise on your goals. Now, I'd just like to say in addition as well, this just came to mind, that when you set, those clear financial goals, have a strategy on how to achieve those goals, right? So after setting the goal that, okay, I want to be able to save X amount of money in my emergency fund, have a strategy. Put it in your budget. Say, okay, when I get my salary, I'm going to be taking out 5%, 10%, 15% towards this particular goal. It's incredibly important so that you are also intentional about achieving your financial goals. So it's not just about setting the financial goal. Have a strategy, a working strategy that will enable that you actually work hard towards those goals and you achieve them. I'd like to end by saying that black tax is deeply rooted in African culture and it's often seen as a way of giving back to the community that raised you. Now, while this is admirable, it's essential to strike a balance. And so it's important to set boundaries, communicate openly, and focus on long-term empowerment so that you can support your family without sacrificing your financial goals. Ultimately, achieving financial independence not only benefits you, but also puts you in a stronger position to provide sustainable support for your loved ones in the future. Did you enjoy today's episode? I did. Thank you for listening. And we know that sharing is caring. So please go ahead and share the link to this episode with someone you want to see win with their finances this year and beyond. It would mean the world to me if you took a few minutes to leave me a review in the comment section of this podcast so that others can see your endorsement and join the community of listeners who enjoy this podcast. If you have any burning questions that you would like me to answer on the podcast, please shoot me an email via talktothemoneymechanic@gmail.com and let me know your dilemma. Don't forget that new episodes of the Hot Money Talks podcast drop weekly and you can listen to them on your favorite podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Subscribe and follow the show on either of these platforms so that you are notified whenever an episode is released. Recommendations are powerful, so please tell your friends and family about this podcast so we can go on this journey together. To connect with me on other platforms, do well to follow The Money Mechanic at The Money Mechanic page on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I hope most importantly that you will take action on your finances today. Sending you love, light, and a sprinkle of money in between.